Be voted African family. Welcome to another edition of the African Liberation Media Show. I'm your co-host, Brother Amos, here with my esteemed elder Baba Makaru. And we have with us tonight a very special guest here in the Charlotte community, our dear brother, author, scholar, intellectual thinker, Brother Woury Diallo. How you doing tonight, brothers?
Beautiful Hodier, doing great.
Be before the year. Every day is a blessing.
Shay. So we brought our brother on here tonight, and he's going to be discussing his books. He's written 5 books that span across different topics dealing with African culture, African spirituality, morals, and values. And he's going to go into that content. But before we get started, Brother Trigg, as we call you, I want you to really introduce yourself to our listeners for those people who have not heard you speak before, or this may be their first time listening to you.
Okay, I'm on that path to eldership at some point. I crossed the 50-year mark back in June, so it's a blessing to reach that milestone. I'm originally from Georgia. My roots are in both Savannah and Augusta area, also some in Atlanta, but primarily Augusta area. And so my inspiration initially, I guess, into what some would call consciousness stemmed from the town I was born in. I was born in a town called Louisville, Georgia. It's about 45 to 50 miles from Augusta, south of Augusta. It's in Jefferson County. It's the county right next to Richmond County, which Augusta is. And in that town, this town is special because it used to be the capital of Georgia after Savannah, because they moved inland to avoid attacks from the Spanish, the British did, or the English, or how we refer to them. But anyway, the town, after they moved further in, they moved from Milledgeville to Augusta, then eventually on to Atlanta, and Atlanta became the capital of Georgia. So Louisville is this small town with this huge courthouse, because it was almost like a Capitol building. But I don't think it was the original building, but it's a huge courthouse there. But in the center of this town is a slave market. And I think growing up every day, seeing this day in, day out, this slave market, I never forgotten that I don't belong here, and my people was brought here for a particular reason. The key factors in the oppression was in my face every day. Some days it became just like scenery. Other days it was a reminder, but I never forgot, that aspect of seeing it every day. So it kept a chip on my shoulder. And that chip on my shoulder is what kept me awake, So I think that is the biggest inspiration of me coming to any type of enlightenment. And also during the time I was born, this is a period where the Panthers was still around. So I still saw footage on the news about the Panthers, and some of the buildings in our neighborhood had Black Power written on top of the doors. So I was able to, feed, from that aspect of identity, cultural identity. And also being that we're 45 minutes or whatever from Augusta, James Brown was a big influence on me. So him with, I'm Black and I'm Proud. All the songs that influenced me are the ones, like Don't Give Me Nothing, open the door, I'll get it myself. Those kind of that kind of philosophy was impressed upon me. So that is what led me to who I am. Now I made my way to Charlotte from Augusta. I had a friend who was going to UNCC, and she needed a roommate. And I felt like I had kind of outgrown Augusta at that time. And so we stayed about 6 months, and then I got my own apartment. She got her own. She wanted to live off campus. She didn't want to live on campus. So that's why she needed a roommate. And so I met Sundiata one night doing poetry, because I was big into poetry. This was the early 2000s. And you know how that Love Jones crave came over the Black community. Everybody doing poetry and spoken word. But I kind of was doing it before that. But with it anyway. So I met him one night doing poetry. Man, we must have talked about 4 a.m. in the morning, and it was like raining in misty rain. You know, we still out talking and just politicking and talking about spiritual matters and things of that nature. And with meeting him, I met other brothers and sisters in the community who influenced me, you know, to, you know, be better and sharpen, you know, my knowledge base and all that. But I went too far ahead because actually in Augusta, I was a part of a study group. And that study group pretty much laid the foundation for me to actually understand what study is and how to actually write. Because the research aspect of it is what was basically taught to me, because, you know, bibliographies and references and things of that nature, and how references lead to another book that leads to another book. You know, it's almost like going down a rabbit hole. So that aspect of being a part of a study group, chewing up books and going to lectures, Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, Asa Hilliard, Phil Valentine at that time, Bobby Hemmett, just a number of different people going to these lectures and sitting and learning from those guys. Bobby Hemmett, which I knew personally, but it's been a while since I've been in contact with him. But, you know, like things that being around certain people, you learn certain things, and people also make you stronger if you don't have the right answers. So you sharpen your responses and they make you dig deeper. You know what I'm saying? So that is what kind of made me who I am.
Arshay. Yeah, I met Brother Trigg, I guess at some point after he moved, you know, into Charlotte, you know, maybe 20, 22 years ago. It's part of some of the movement things that we were involved in at that time. I also met Brother Sundiata after he was released from his paid state vacation, and through Sundiata, I met Trigg and Roderick Bird, the infamous Dreek, and other brothers like a brilliant young poet, Mauricio. I don't know where Mauricio is. I don't know if you remember him or not, Trigg.
Yeah, I do actually. Yes.
Yeah, he was. This guy was brilliant, and I started bringing some of these guys on to because I was organizing Kwanzaa programs at that time, which I've been organizing since the early 1990s, and brought them into some programs, and we were engaged in various projects. The Nguza Saba Liberation Academy, I mean, the Nguza Saba and the Uhuru Sasa Liberation Academy, and various other activities. So, yeah, he was what these young guys, being a veteran activist. Trigg mentioned the Black Panther Party, which I joined when I was 17. Being a veteran activist, veteran activists need to be reinvigorated by younger people, right?
Right.
And, you know, I remember having that conversation with Baba Makasa. He was telling me how, you know, younger people like me and, you know, inspired him to keep going. And so when I met younger people like Trigg, Woury Diallo, and Brother Sundiata and Brother Dreek, and, you know, then later Brother Amos, I mean, it invigorates, you know, veteran activists. It keeps us inspired also. So, you know, it's been a liberating and inspiring journey. So when Brother Trigg introduced these books to us, when he gave us the books, he's going to show the books, but this is an example of how one of the books looks. The first thing I thought about was this book, Axioms of Kwame Nkrumah. Now, you know, I started in the Panther Party, and so in the Panthers, they gave out the Red Book. I don't know where my copy of the Red Book is. Chairman Mao's quotation, Mao Zedong, leader of the Chinese Revolution. Everybody in the Panther Party had to read the Red Book. But when I moved over to the Pan-African aspect of the Black liberation struggle, this became the pocketbook that we carried around. And as a matter of fact, and this is directly related to what Brother Trigg is doing, Kwame Nkrumah's first axiom, you can't see it here, but it says the secret to life is to have no fear. And so that became my mantra as I moved through the struggle and was in situations where absolutely you had to have no fear. That there's something about standing in the face of your enemy, and that enemy sees that you're not afraid, regardless of what they may be able to do to you or think they can do to you. When they see someone who's not afraid, that just changes the whole dynamic. So that was the first thing I thought about. I thought about this book. And the other thing that I thought about later on when I got involved in the African Senate movement was this book. Y'all can see this, Teachers of Batar Hotel.
Right.
Okay, wise instructions. This is the oldest complete book in the world. Okay, from the was the third dynasty, I think it was Zoser. When was Zoser? Almost, I can't remember. Zoser and Acer, third. Okay, so yeah, so that's what I thought about, and so I talked to Brother Amos. I said, we need to have Brother Diallo come on and talk to us, about these books. So the first thing, Brother Diallo, I know that you traveled to Senegal, I think the Senegambia region. I know that had a powerful, influence on you. But just tell us, for example, what was number one, the inspiration for producing these books, and number two, what did you hope to accomplish? I mean, that's probably two things that require long answers. So, just we'll go from there.
Yeah, my first trip to Senegal was more of a analyze the society, and to see how Africans on the ground actually live, and that's why I chose to go. I also chose to learn language, but I chose to go so I could be among the people and see how it was, and not stay somewhere distant in a hotel or whatever. Be among the people in the neighborhood, and there I saw trust, orderliness, and between generations, I saw trust. Wasn't so much, oh, this is a younger person, that's an older person. I mean, it's there, but overall, though, was mainly just, the interacting amongst people. Mm-hmm. And now I saw, my whole time there, I saw one argument, and that was a road issue. It wasn't someone, arguing about, you owe me this or do this or do that. It was, road rage, which, because the driving in Africa is, a whole nother level. You risk your life every time you get here. So, but that whole thing of seeing how society operate, but also having a lot of conversation with a lot of people who actually are linguists, because that's who I was mainly around. And I noticed that everybody speaks multiple languages there, and because of the pluralistic nature of those regions. Mm-hmm. And so me seeing that and being a student of history, and just thinking about like what we lost, the orderliness, the trust, the morals, the things that was taken from us. And I also saw some people there who looked up to Europeans over their own people. So, and I realized how powerful we could be if we was actually unified. So with that said, I started seeing myself like we are elephants who see ourselves as ants. And when we look in the mirror, and that's the problem. So, and I looked and I noticed our influence, the influence of Black Americans, Jamaicans, is strong on the continent. It's strong in the world at large. And like we have literally wasted a lot of influence that we've had, that we could have like really reshaped the world in our own image. And that is what kind of motivated me to first start, thinking about putting something together like this, because what Europeans do is they shape the world in their image. They see the world as a ball of clay, and then they shape it into their image. And from studying different cultures, I realized that all these people who came before us, and whether they in Western Asia, Europe, uh, South Asia, wherever, the Far East, it was somebody who came with an idea to unify their people. And they said, this is what it is, and this is what it is. And you accept it or you don't, but this is what it is. And I realized that the lack of confidence is what's keeping us back. The self-doubt is those things that are holding us back. The Europeans are going to always be your opposition. In fact, everybody in the globe going to be your opposition because it's all about competition.
That's right.
So my thing is, okay, that factor is going to always be there. But what has to change is your relationship to it. And I got all this from that first trip, you know, seeing like the history and actually touching the some of the books of these cats who came before, you know, like seeing the sword of Umar Tal, actually the guy who was fighting the French, you know, and who actually created what the Messina Empire or whatever. Seeing these actual things, man, like these guys did this, you know, like, and like these guys were setting up kingdoms like in 1776. You know, like when we was over here catching hell, they were still doing that. So they were still trying to create states. So I've said to myself, I was like, it's got to be a way that we can unify our people around some kind of ideology, some kind of philosophy. Mainly, that's what the whole thing is, to create a philosophy, just a philosophy that will lead us to a black golden age, whether it's just here or global, where somewhere where we're leading and people come and everybody contribute to it. And so I came back and was, you know, thinking, and I was studying, like, again, language. And when I started studying language, it really just opened my mind up completely. And from that, my second trip back to Senegal, I went during the rainy season. And man, I swear the drops of rain, they fall on me. It felt like it was cleansing my soul from all the Western corruption and all the, you know, all the Western filth that we've been exposed to. And I said, when I get back, I'm not going to hesitate, you know, to put my pen to paper, because I always had the gift to write. And so I was like, whatever I do, I'm gonna use my pen like a sword. I'm gonna turn my words into a drum. And so these rhythms, this is gonna be the drum by the fire with my words. And so that was the whole thing, to try to bring African ideals into a context of our context, because we live different from them. We have different experiences. So I wanted to find a way to fashion the African philosophy, African theology, African way of thinking into a way that conducive with us here. Because we got our own experiences that should also be respected. You know, like I see, like, I'm gonna give you a good example. A lot of places on the continent, in traditional societies and traditional spiritual systems, that they say the supreme being is distant, and so they only deal with the nature deities or the divinities or whatever of some sort. Well, I feel that our perspective is we have access to both the natural world and the supreme being. So I incorporate that aspect into our philosophy, because without the supreme being, there will be no ancestors. You know, and my philosophy is, and I've heard Africans say the same thing, that the first ancestor is the supreme being. So in that sense, I incorporated all that into the philosophy I created on the spiritual side of things. On the we can go further into it when we start talking about each particular book, but that experience the second time, it showed me that if we actually just believe in ourselves, believe that we are who we say we are, and we pull from the past, the brightest things that we've done in the past, and the brightest things from our present, and combine the two, we have a better future. Just simple as that. And I use one European model for my writing process. I use Van Gogh. Van Gogh said something to the effect that a little small thing every day or something. I want to quote it correctly, but it's basically just doing a little every day, and you bring those things together, and it becomes something great. So I use that method. I write something every day. So in doing that, I figured, that at the end I have something completed. I just didn't stop, because I met writers when I was younger, and I said to myself, how are they writing all this? Like, I know people who wrote 13 books. When they have the time to? And they said, I just write. But at the time, I didn't understand what they meant. So, but I started writing a little every day, and pulling from deep inside of me. And also, I meditate and pray, and I contemplate. I do deep contemplation. I would prefer to use that term over meditation. I do deep contemplation. And then I go inside and I ask my ancestors to build a fortress around me, and may I stand against self-doubt. That is the thing, the self-doubt. Because we got to believe in ourselves. Right now, people in a sad state where we depend on the state for every single thing. And so, and I would want to write some things that would get us out of that situation.
Okay. Okay. So basically, I'm gonna tell you what I hear you saying, and based on going through the books that you've written, there's a desperate need in the African world, in the entire African world, for a cultural revolution,
right?
That's based on African-centered, holistic, critical thinking, and we know what we have experienced here as a result of here in the diaspora, and really the United States is unique, even within the diaspora. We know that we're descendants of the people who were part of the world's largest forced migration, and as Mama Marimba Ani discusses, most of our culture was stripped away,
right.
Immediately. Language, dress, food, spirituality, all of that was, they went through an intense process to de-Africanize us and produce, what they call creolization. But there were some things that we still held on to, despite this chaos, this complete rupture, from the safety and security of the land, the family, the institutions. We were free, proud, and productive people. And so what I hear you saying, this was something that we attempted to do beginning. You mentioned James Brown, say it loud.
Yep.
Black and I'm proud, right? James went from the process to the natural hair, and then he kind of he backslid a little bit, but he made what he was saying to us, people in my generation at that point. I'm growing up classified as a Negro and colored,
right?
Okay, and black really was a negative term and whatnot. And here we are, these people talking about black power, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud, all these types of things. So what I hear you saying in terms of what you've experienced, both here and as a result of your travels, that you are trying to be part. You putting some information out there for us that can be part of what we hope is a cultural revolution that breaks the monopoly that Eurocentric thought that our oppressors have on our minds. Is that
exactly
kind of like what you were thinking about?
Exactly. And the size of my books, it's funny you mentioned the Red Book, because I also used to read the Red Book. And when I two things. When I was a kid, the Christian missionaries used to come to the elementary schools every year, and they pass out the New Testament, the little small New Testaments. And I'm like, I started thinking about it. I was like, they didn't charge anybody anything. They just handed the information to the people. And so my philosophy was to do something similar to that with the Atekis, where I pass it out without a charge. And but back to the red book and Sun Tzu, The Art of War, those pocket books that you used to buy with even on the Taoist stuff and everything, they was like little small books, and it was, you know, you can just carry them with you anywhere. It was real convenient to have.
Right.
So I try to use that method when I write. And also, given the time frame that we live in where everybody's attention span is so short, I try to write where it's real precise and you can chew it up real fast. So I took all that stuff into consideration, where it's easy to carry and it's a quick read. So you can get to it, put a little meat in there, but have a quick read.
Right.
You know, straight to the point. And sometimes some of the subjects you got to go a little longer on. But I try not to go so much where, you know, I'm fighting against this social media domination over people's brains, you know, at this point. So.
Exactly. Yeah, there's definitely an attention deficit, you know, in this microwave culture. We want everything fast, quick, fast, and in a hurry, and then there's no such thing. So unless Brother Amos has a question, you know, why don't you pull up the books? So that we can you can start telling us, you know, what the process by which you went through from one to, you know, the latest one that you just gave us a couple of weeks ago at the Marcus Garvey program.
Okay. So the term that I call all this is the beautiful path, and this the language that I'm using is based off of the Bateki language out of Gabon, and I chose that because it's Central Africa, and it's not European, it's not Arab, it's ours. So I chose to go with some Bantu languages, right? So I'm using that. Also, on my father's side, this is my bloodline through DNA. So it's a connection there. Well, so Nikula Bwebwe is the beautiful path, and that's what this presentation is called. And I'm gonna give the meanings and explanations. So I also created a script, and that's what you see above the figure's head. And Yao means aware or awaking. So another way of saying woke.
Okay.
But all right, so let me skip this and get right to it. So this book here, initially, the book is actually called a Khol Burafet, and that's Wolof for the beautiful heart. And the reason I put the Wolof word on it is because I got inspired to do this in Senegal. So, but in the Bateki language, it would be Makolo Bwebwe, which means a beautiful heart. And the word itself means small raindrops. And so each one of the texts inside of here is like small little. I like to say, some people say proverbs, but I just want to say it's more like wisdom, sharing what's required of us to live in a healthy society or be healthy human beings. Healthy, whether it's physical, spiritual, or mental. And that's the whole point for this book. It's written in simple, everyday language to help people understand it, so it can be given to anybody, no matter what so-called class they reside in. Which I'm against class and caste and everything anyway, but the fact that, you know, some people are more educated than others in vocabulary wise. So I made it with plain English. Malcolm said, "Make it plain."
Make it plain.
So that's why I chose this book here to be something that can reach everybody. And this book, I would never charge for this book. I'll take donations for more prints, but I won't charge for the book. So at the front of the book, let me actually pull one so I can explain it. In the front of the book, the very first page, which I wish I could show you on the screen, but the very first page, I have the script that I created above it on the first page. So when you open the book, you'll see that. But it's based off of the ancient Kemetic weighing of the heart. That's where the concept came from.
Okay.
Because the Makolo part I have in here is the heart. But if you go to the second part of the book, there's a feather. And I'm using the Bateki word Lasala, which means heart. Means feather. So the whole notion of a beautiful heart is to say that your heart, is pure. And so this concept comes from the weighing of the heart, the whole Kemetic ideal. This is what it's rooted in. So I'm trying to show how you're able to be lighthearted, be pure, have a pure heart, and purify your heart. So that's what this whole concept of the heart and the feather is. I downplay the feather somewhat and focus more on the heart, because the heart is what needs to be fixed. But when you go to the second part of the book, where you start seeing the prayers that's in the back, the summers, because summer means prayer, you'll see excuse me, I'm saying this all backwards. Heart is in the prayer section, but in the beginning of the book, you'll see the feather. And that will be on page 4, the Lasala, the feather. And that's just showing, that is a nod back to our, classical civilization. So I'm incorporating those things into the book, but everyone wouldn't notice that. But those who do know will know, So I put certain things like that here throughout the book, and hopefully people will actually, pick up on it later.
Yeah.
But each one of the techies though, or just to actually we'll tell you what's required of you. For instance, Techie 89, without water we cease, without the sun we cease, without trees we cease, and without the earth we will definitely perish. So this tell you what you have to take care of. You have to take care of the earth. You have to take care of the trees. These are and it's also telling you these are the things that we need. The Techie 88, seek knowledge, right knowledge from birth to death, absolutely every moment in between. It's small, simple text. A Techie 140, a calm spirit is pleasant to be around. Raucous behavior disrupts. It's things of that nature that helps you daily. If you read this daily, it'll remind you how to live, a righteous life. Because at the end of the day, too much clutter in your life is what destroy you, because you don't have you lose your connection with the spirit world, because you're so filled with distractions.
Right.
So this is just to refocus the mind, and so that's what that is. That's about.
Okay, that's and it, of course, being a student of history, it was only natural that you would include Ma'at,
right,
as part of the foundation for developing these teachings. Also reminds me, a lot of the teachings that we had, see in the Husia, but.
Right, exactly. Yeah. There's a prophecy that was in the Hermetica that said Ma'at will be reestablished by people in the West.
Wow. Okay.
And if my thing is, it can happen if you make it happen. So that's another thing that I try to remember. Like, okay, they said people in the West will be the ones who restore Ma'at. So
yeah,
let me help.
and that's our job, to make people aware. Make people aware, and it's not making people aware to we had a glorious history. Dr. Clark said all history is a current event.
Right.
And so we have to use the history, to deal with the conditions that we're dealing with today. One of the things that Kwame Nkrumah, says in here, that in his book on axioms, is each historical situation produces its own dynamics.
Right, exactly.
So we are part of the dynamics for this particular moment, in history, and it's only natural that we would pull from the best that our culture is producing. Certainly, my art and ethics of my art is right at the top of the great things that African people have produced. But go right ahead, brother, with your next one.
Yeah, the conditions and the environment is what produce, the people. And so, depending on the pressure that's been put on them, it determines what we made.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so the more pressure, the diamonds come, so we've been going through it. So, we got to produce. So, all right. So in the techie, I have this section, the summer section. This is pulled out from that, but it has extra prayers in there.
Okay.
And so I created a separate book, prayer book, and that's called the Summer Yakele, pray and purify. And as it says, the prayer book of the beautiful path. This book allows the seeker to soothe the mind and purify the heart by communicating directly to the Supreme Being. And that is the part that is distinctly different from continental Africa, maybe some groups, but not many, from them and us, because we always feel like we can communicate directly to the Supreme Being because of being here. And when we had felt like we had no other choice, we had to go straight to the Supreme Being. So that is the aspect that I fuse with the traditional African spiritual systems.
Right.
Now, the symbol on there is a bowl. And that bowl represents, libations to the ancestors, and also represents, holding up honor to the Supreme Being. So that's what that is about. And for instance, to show you exactly what these prayers are, they're not like simple prayers like begging for anything. It's for instance, like Summer 98. Most High, don't allow us to become drunken off hope alone. Let us actualize a world that we need. It's talking about doing. Being behind, So it's things like that. Most High, may we apply the wisdom of our elders and ancestors. May we live their words and deeds of their books. These are the kind of prayers I incorporate in there. Most High, may we honor our ancestors by our actions and offerings. Allow our libations to lubricate a return of the righteous cycle. These are the type of prayers that's in this book.
Okay.
So
fantastic.
So between studying the techies daily, doing prayers, I also have a daily prayer in the book. Also, it's at the back, a gratitude prayer that I do early in the morning, mainly on the weekend, because that's when I have to do it when I do it during the when the sunrise or whatever. But okay, so this other book, Ikwini Yamusia, which means the dormant and the cord. This book here is basically okay, with the subtitle, the Rafeti philosophical, metaphysical, psychological, and cosmological explanations. I know that's a mouthful, but it is what it is. It has philosophy in it, metaphysics in it, psychoanalysis in it, and it has cosmology in it. And I put this together because all people have a cosmology. They have a belief of where they start and how they started, where they come from, and how that links them back to the cosmos. And so in his book, it explains a lot of things about the personality, how our personality is created, through our life experiences, through our place of birth, and where we currently reside, through our experiences, through our willpower, things of that nature. And it talks about different aspects of living, like pulling what's inside you out. It talks about that, but it talks about the cosmology. I got a cosmological system that I explain, like how we're connected to the Supreme Being by this cord. And the cord is like a necklace, and the adornment is us. The symbol that's on this book is my abstract way of creating a graphic of the personality. And the personality is what shapes us, but it's actually not us. It's only our experiences and the place that we're born and our knowledge that we accumulate, all this outside stuff that influences the outer us. The inner us is actually the supreme being. So that symbol represents the personality. It's almost like a necklace charm that's connected through the cord that connects it back to the supreme being. That's what that symbol is. So you get in that book, it kind of explains that somewhat. But as I go further into the slide, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
You want to say anything before I move forward?
No, I'm just admiring how you have synthesized information, from various aspects of our culture and our in our history. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just admiring that, and somebody's knocking on my door. So y'all go ahead and continue.
Well, I wanted to say too, I think as far as the importance of having daily motivation and having daily words that lead you to a higher level of thinking, I think that is one of the things that's missing that our people need. And I'm not, a believer in any of the major Western religions, but even if you look at American society, when they decided to take religion out of the schools, that same decade, I believe that was that the late 80s or the early 90s when that?
It was somewhere right. It was either late 80s or early 90s. I think late 80s. Okay. But it was around the time that Columbine thing, I think.
Yeah, so it's like right after that. That's exactly what I was going to say. You have the first mass school shooting in this country, whereas prior to that, we never had any mass shootings in schools. So there is a key component to having a moral standard to live by, no matter what you no matter what you believe in.
Yeah, it's got to be something grounding you into a society, because if you're not grounded in anything, any little thing that comes by, you'll attach yourself to it. And also, like, every individual that is a part of a group has to submit some of their authority to the group. See, we live in a time right now where everybody want to do their own thing. No society lasts like that. You can't have a society where everybody's doing their own thing. Somebody has to have accountability, and someone has to submit some of their authority to the group. Otherwise, you don't have a society. So that's why the need for ideology is so important for us, because we don't have any accountability, and we don't have anybody submitting to the group. And the thing about the group is like, they got to feel like they're a part of it, and they got to feel like there's a space for them. And that's the thing about the town I grew up in. There was never a time in that town where I never felt like I wasn't a part of it. Like, I felt like I go back now, I feel like the town hugged me. I mean, it's so tight knit, like everybody knows everybody. It's a town that had only, like, at its height, probably had 2,500 people. And the county probably had about 20 at top, maybe 20,000, maybe. But I think roughly somewhere between 18,000 and 20,000 people. That's only been the top population levels. It's been a big influence on me because of that, because it's probably 60% black. Cause that part of Georgia is it's pretty black, So I'm talking long before this whole everybody migrate to Atlanta, like the Augusta area, Savannah, the surrounding counties. Like, you could tell the counties that doesn't have a whole lot of black people. Right. But I grew up in a county that has a lot of black people. So in the town, one of the towns south of Louisville is called Woury, Georgia, and black town. Train come through. It used to be known as Shake Rag. They used to call the town. But so I grew up in that kind of environment, man, where everybody knows everybody, and they literally, like, they would stop you from doing certain things. Like some of those things have, you know, if you're about to go off the deep end, they'll, you know, step in. But a lot of those values now have been destroyed, man, because of media, TV and social media now, you know, because everybody's trying to pattern themselves off of what they saw on TV, like what the New Yorkers doing. And even to this day, I would say people in New York think they set the agenda for Black America. Whatever people in Brooklyn, they think they really, the intellectuals in Brooklyn really think they set the agenda for Black America. Mm. When we are here, our numbers are down here. That's another reason for me to, like, I can't allow people who don't know this hardship that we have down here, because they got a different culture, you know, customs compared to us. You know, they didn't have the speaking customs that we grew up with, you know. And you can see the influence happening in Charlotte now. It's transforming where people don't speak to each other.
Right.
Yeah. You know?
So Trig, when you were growing up, did you have any awareness of Lucy Craft Laney and the school that she built, you know, in Augusta?
Yeah. One of my close friends, I think he went there. He didn't go there. He went to T.W. Josie, one of the schools there. I think he went to Laney, though. I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But yeah, I had because there's a museum there for her also, a little small museum.
Yeah. And so also when I was in college, there was a rebellion in Augusta, centered around the students at Payne College, where you know, two young brothers were killed, you know, by the police. And so all of this was happening at the same time. Kent State, Jackson State, Payne College. I think Payne might have happened before Jackson State. And they were calling us in the Atlanta University Center. And man, we just had a massive walkout, just a boycott. We didn't go to class because we were demonstrating on behalf of, you know, what happened to our brothers there. This was probably a couple of years before you were born. You know, at Payne, but I'm sure you probably heard about, you know, the
I heard it was some serious that happened. I didn't know the details, but I did hear they had something happen out there.
Yeah.
That school, if I'm not mistaken, Morehouse started there. One of the schools in Atlanta actually started there before it was in Atlanta, and it spin off or something. Something. It's some kind of attachment between either Morehouse and Payne, or I don't think it's Clark. I want to say it's Morehouse or Morris Brown. One of those schools are actually linked to it, whereas I think it's originated there or whatever. A little known fact about Augusta is a lot of the people who went to Liberia, like some of the Tubmans, they come out of there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have like a Tubman Road down there and everything. So you know, it's a connection there between those Tubmans and that went to Liberia and the ones in Augusta.
Okay.
Yeah, it's some history there, you know.
Okay. Yeah, that's you know, that's very interesting, because when you think about, you know, both Sierra Leone and Liberia, you think more about, you know, people leaving, you know, from, you know, cities along the coast. So they, you know, they had to travel probably down to Charleston or somewhere in order to but I mean, American Colonization Society, it was trying to get us out of here. So
we would have made the accommodations.
Yeah, they say we'll help you any way we can, right?
Yeah, so let me tap back into this. So this book here, Inunua, it means the window, and it says, you know, looking through the window of your inner being. And this is similar to how I did the techies, but this time it's more focused on the Supreme Being, and the other section is focused on, like, I have a small section in the middle called that deal with the personality, but the third part deals with the ancestors. So it's like a fusion of all three concepts: the human, Supreme Being, the human, and the ancestors. You know, the living human and the ancestors. So that is the somewhat of the concept, but it's also about looking at how you are linked to all of this.
Now, what's the significance of the heart here on this design?
I just want to tie it back into the other, because it means, you know, you're still in the process of purifying the heart. So that's why I put the heart back into it. Just so it reflects back on the purification aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always trying to somehow tie my eye back into, anything I'm writing about, because my ultimate goal is so that we can be moral, upright people and achieve, and step out on our destiny. So
Okay.
that is the whole purpose of me putting it on there. I don't have it on here, but on the back of the book, there's the figure, and there's some points around him that I call the staff of wisdom. And so the images on the back is about, how you what you need to be a whole healthy human being, and that's wisdom, knowledge, understanding. You live life through your body. The will of your soul is how you achieve, and your mind is shaped by the place that you actually live or where you're born, and it must be rooted in the sacred. That's what makes you a healthy, whole human being.
Right.
A real person.
Mm-hmm.
And that image on the back of the book, once people get the book, they'll see that and understand what the concept is behind that.
Right. Sort of reminds me of the ancient Kemet concept of Ib, the merger of the heart and the mind, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. I threw in the gut in one of my concepts because of intuition, and because it's downplayed a lot in the West, but it's something about that, because I've been in situations where I felt it, and it wasn't in my heart and it wasn't in my mind. It was literally in my gut.
Okay.
And so with that idea, what they call gut feeling or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I tied that into with the heart. So I use that triad, that trinity. I use the mind, the heart, and the gut. But I don't, not the gut as so much the stomach, but the inner gut. Something spiritual in it, like the heart has a spiritual component, like the brain has a spiritual component called the mind. So that's how I kind of tie those concepts together. So I'm putting all three of these books together in a later book, which is going to make it easy for people just to have all of them together in one book. And that's
Okay.
going to be called a Tenoye. And I slightly adjusted the cover, so you'll see that later. But Tenoye means to set out on a journey. So that's what this is. This is the journey of a person trying to find who they are and to maintain a moral life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the whole concept behind the Tenoye. And again, that's the script that was created for us to use, because I feel like eventually, once we get our language in order, we'll have our own writing style to write with. So we can have our own. Everything got to come from us. It can't come from no one else. We would never be respected people by our own people or outside people if we don't create our stuff from ourselves. And so this is the most recent book that I created called Sovereignty and Symbols, and which I also adjusted the cover here, if you could tell. So this book here is to every culture have motifs. They have these themes that keep running through the culture that you see it. Like for the Christians, you see the cross. For the Muslims, you see the crescent and the star, and various other things. For the Persians, you see things. For the Greeks, you see like the little heart or whatever. So everybody has something. So I create these symbols in here that should be used. So this should be given to the artist so they can paint these things. And so graphic designers should use them and put it inside of books. It should be incorporating everything on fabric, in hats, and design, and marketing, and all aspects of our culture should be seen. Similar to how the Dinkaras have their symbols in kente cloth and all the other different fabrics that you see through Africa. Just like when you see mud cloth, mud cloth by the patterns. You can tell, you're like, oh, that's from Mali. That's from the Senegambia region. You can tell just by looking at the pattern that this is from that region. Every time you see mud cloth, you know what it is by the symbols. You see like the lines that represent the river, and the dots represent, the stars and all this stuff. So
Right.
you know what you're seeing. So in this book has symbols in there so we can incorporate part of the culture. So it creates this motif, this theme, and it transmit a message, because creativity should be used to transmit your culture, your customs. So all your art should reflect your customs and your cultures and your morals. So that's the whole point of having symbols. The sovereignty aspect is to show how, as a group of people, we come together, create a system centered around communalism, around working together. I chose it's a part in the book. When you get to it, you'll see how I have one share, one vote. How we going to organize a banking system. The banking system, first of all, has to be moral. It has to it has to address the needs of the people. But everybody should be getting some benefit from it, from the system that we create. From whether it's economic or whatever, everybody should be getting some benefit. That would reduce the drag on society by people who don't put in as much as they should. Because that's human nature. You're gonna have people who don't carry the load like they should. At some point in time, after the fervor has gone from the creation of something new, some people just fall back somewhat. So to kind of and to try to keep as much equality in the system, have it where everybody gets something out of it by shares. They get a vote on. So if you own your own companies, and everybody, the employees will get a share, just like cooperative economics. That's basically what this is. So I got that in there, and it's also talking about how we should also stand on our ideals. It's I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I just want to read something real quick to give an example of how what I mean. So this says community support. Community support is like arms of a family member holding up an ailing member. Group support is the fuel for confidence. All members of a community work extra hard for the group when they feel like they are genuinely connected and respected. So to create this idea, you got to have everybody feel like they feel like they're dignified. You think about, if you ever watched that Garvey documentary that PBS did, with all the flaws of it, where they still trying to tear Garvey down, if you listen to some of the commentaries on it. But if you listen to the very first part, when they was talking about, I guess one of the members of the UNIA children, one of the members' children, he talked about how dignified his father felt when he put on that uniform.
Right.
That's the kind of mentality you got to have. It changed to change a person's whole demeanor just by giving them something. We got to start saying that what Wade Noble says this. Amos Wilson says this. They said we have to define our own reality, and this is the whole point of all this: to define our own reality. At the end of the day, that's all I'm trying to do: to find our own reality. Like I said, shape the world in our own image. Some of the stuff we've done before, we can do it again. Garvey said it.
That's what Garvey said.
Garvey said it.
That's what Garvey said. What African people have done, African people can do. He didn't say it exactly like that, but that's
right.
That's the essence of what he's saying. Right.
Exactly. So that's the whole point of this. So let me move quick. So I'm taking all the time. But this symbol here is basically part of the whole cosmology thing. Whereas we're connected through the supreme being by these three key centers here: the gut, the intuition, the inner heart, the compassion, and the consciousness, which is the mind. So those three things that are tied back to the visible realm, which is where we reside at on the planet, that goes back into all the way back into. I can break this down when we start having classes so people can understand exactly what it is. But in a nutshell, it's basically how we connected back to the supreme being, and that's the cord. And we are a charm on the cord, so we're like a charm on the necklace. So that's basically it, because so that we are the adornment. and that is what I'm the concept that I'm presenting.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so, and again, here's the symbols: the purified heart, Makolo Bwebwe, the Holobu Rafet, the Ikwini, the adornment, the symbol of the 4 stages of the personality development. And you will see that inside of the techies too. It's in the very back of the techies. I incorporated that so people can understand it. So the first one would be the top right will be, so each one of these points on this adornment represent the 4 aspects of the personality. So Ikuma, which is the place, Kona, which is desire or willpower, and Umue, which is experiences of life, and Nitsima, which is basically knowledge. So all of those 4 stages is what make the personality. The life is, from place of birth, from the will to try to achieve or to move forward, then life itself, and then the knowledge that you accumulate from life. Those are the 4 things that create the personality, which is the ego. But it's also like the spirit. This is why I make a distinction between spirit and soul. So this is the aspect of who you think you are, but it's really not the true you. So that dot in the center is the true you. All the other stuff around you is the stuff that's attached to you through living. So the dot in the center is actually you. All right. So again, the window represents just the spiritual self looking through the actual inner being of the person. The other one, the Ifulu Ikuru, which is the ancestral flower. Each heart on it represents an ancestor. And it goes back and back and back until you get to the supreme being. So that one single heart in the center is the supreme being. That's that concept. Here's the script that I created. For instance, to give a good example, like A represents like I chose this description to call the supreme being. I call it Osomi, which means first. So being that everything starts with the supreme being, and that take a word that just means first. It's a description, it just means first. So it's not the name of the supreme being, it just means first, it's a description. But you can use it as a name. But so with that being just first, I use A. I use something that looks like a 1 for A. B, because I write a lot, I use this as representing a balanced desk, a desk where books are. So that's why I have that symbol as I came up with that. And the C is basically a stool like you see in Ghana or over West Africa, or a chair, basically. So that's where the C aspect comes from. I create like basically a stool. So it's things like that. The J, if you see that, it's like an elbow. That's a joint. So it's those. That's how it determine some of these. Some of these are phonetic, but most of them are based off of imagery. So I try to incorporate some ideas like how the thing can have a meaning, and it has like some phonetics to it. So, but that's what it is. For instance, like the V, that's because like when you pronounce the V, it almost has a V and an F with your lips, like you're making a F sound with the sound. So that's how I came up with some of those concepts. The D is really like a mound, like a burial mound. So that's why it looks like that. So D as in like death or burial mound. So that's how I arrived at some of these things like that.
Okay.
So it's a method to the madness.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of thought going on.
Yeah, exactly. R is the intersection, basically just a road. So intersection. So that's how like I said, arrived at it. And so this is the ultimate philosophy. Simple words can build strong individuals with good characters, like small raindrops can beat holes in the stone.
Wow.
Yeah, and may my words improve conditions. This symbol, I've actually adjusted this symbol so that it's going to be called a Yaliwama, which means determination. So instead of using resolve, even though resolve somewhat means the same thing, but I'm going with determination. And because what it is a tree trying to stretch itself to reach, like a pine tree trying to stretch itself to get sunlight. And that's what this symbol represents, determination. So that's the whole concept in a nutshell. So I'm working on I'm working on a book that has some biographical type stuff about my life. But it had just the top portion of it, just to show how I arrived at who I am. But then everything else is more words to inspire people. But the thing that I'm working on that's going to take some time is I'm working on something like almost like a law book. It's a law book, but it's in the sense that I want to call it it's something like the book of taboos. So things that we wouldn't allow, and this like, it really goes into like, okay, things we wouldn't allow, like harming of kids and, things of that nature. But I'm working on something similar to that, so we can have like a actual, like a law book, that's centered around our stuff, almost dealing with like some jurisprudence stuff for our own people, so for us. So we have actually end up with our own nation. We already have something that started that can be added to, in advance. I'm gonna read something real quick to tie this up. What I said is, this is the path to a new African American philosophy and culture, centered around the Most High, in praise of the ancestors, the seeking of knowledge and applying that knowledge, decency and dignity, self-reliance, production, and defense. This is the path to a Black golden age. So this is what I'm. This is going to be my life work. Some people say they're going to have a life work. This is my body of work. So I want to have a legacy left behind, and so that I can say I gave it my all trying to improve our condition.
Right. Well, let me say this, that it's obvious that you are, number one, dedicated, that you've done a whole lot of study, research, field studies, and, combining that with your experience, this is very impressive. Very, very, very impressive.
I get this magazine every month. It's called Monocle. And I want to say it's based in the UK, maybe, but I know it's printed in Germany. And it's basically, these Europeans came up with these magazines that cover everything from fashion, architecture, global interaction between countries. It's politics. Everything's in it. Everything's in this book. It's a magazine. Everything's in it. They discuss everything, all world events. So a lot of pictures in it, I see they got one that comes out every year called like the best society, like a list of the top 20 countries or whatever, the best places to live, things like that. And of course, the US has been dropping, and some of the best cities in it, that's what the best cities in the US has been dropping for like a while. But a lot of times I look at the pictures and sometimes you see people that sitting around drinking lattes and things. I'm like, man, my people struggling, and these cats are drinking lattes. That does something to me, because I know how great we are. And I'm saying to myself, like, our resources is fueling their lifestyle. And and so the only way we can combat being in the condition that we're in is that we actually organize and create societies that function without, these kleptomaniacs. Or people who actually got some fortitude to stand up against, these bad agreements that they sign and contracts, So, and then here we got people who just choose comfort, the individual comfort over the masses suffering.
That's a fact. That is a fact. Yeah. I think that's I don't want to go off because you've given us a lot of information there, but it's part of what we're dealing with now with this this presidential campaign. Moral conscience is not even on the ballot. Right?
Yeah, they push their career before an agenda.
Yeah,
they want to advance their career. That's all they care about.
Yeah, and it's like a lot of people are mentally incarcerated by the fear of the greater evil, and there's no evil is evil, period. So I mean, a lesser evil and a greater evil, it just become degrees. And in this case, you really, in a lot of ways, particularly in terms of geopolitics, you have two evils that you're dealing with. But in terms of comfort, a lot of people will try to choose what they think is the lesser evil because they don't want to lose their privileged positions, within the American empire.
Right.
And so they make that choice. But I think what you're doing is part of what has to change, because there needs to be a massive struggle between clarity of thought and confusion. A lot of our people, particularly of our young people now, there's so much competition for their minds. There's so many things going into the minds of our children, at age 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, all of this social media stuff, and so confusion is dominating clarity of thought. Clarity of thought is not even is barely on the radar. But that doesn't mean that we can't reproduce what we did at one time. A society based on ethics. Right. Where we were free, proud, productive, prosperous, and powerful people. Right.
Right.
So, that's what it's all about. And, it's an open contest. I mean, even though we are up against tremendous odds, there's no reason why we shouldn't believe that our ideas can reach a critical mass. But nothing happens until you put the information out there to the people.
Right.
So
right.
That's the reason why we wanted to, have you come on the program. Once you made these books available to us, and we started reading through them. We want you to come on the program and just give it some further exposure, because it is part of this the cultural revolution that we desperately need, and the clarity of thought that we need to counterbalance all of the confusion and the madness that's taking place in this late stage of the American empire.
Right, definitely.
So
I don't know. I know you're a busy man, but I would love for you to. This would take time, but do a commentary on each individual techie in that book. And I would include it in the next print that we'll have the commentary. Because I'm sure you can contribute more things to each particular techie,
Okay.
Because the whole thing is, I wanted to make it a living book that we can add to, and because I don't have the answers for everything. I'm going on tried and true things that work for me, and some of the stuff I feel like came through me from my ancestors. So, but I do want, I need someone to write a commentary on some of it, so we can build it out and expand some of the concepts, some of the things.
Okay.
Because the more we include to it, the more depth it gets,
Right. Absolutely. Well, Ashe, brother, Ashe, we certainly appreciate it.
Brothers and sisters, leave your comments down in the comment section. Brother Woury, thank you for joining us. Tell our listeners how they can get in contact if you have a website or somewhere where they can find out more information about the materials that you have?
Yeah, I'm currently working on the website. Should be up and running maybe by next week. But you can reach me right now at Woury, that's Woury, Diallo, Diallo, Jam, which is DJAM. I may be saying this wrong. Let me give you another one. I'm sorry. Let me give you Trig Books, TRIGBOOKS @gmail.com. It's pretty quick into it, but it's TRIGBOOKS @gmail.com. Excuse me.
All right, so that's trigbooks @gmail.com. Brothers and sisters, we thank you for joining us. Give this video a thumbs up to help us out in the YouTube algorithm. Until next time, a B before Hodier.
A B before Hodier.
A B before Hodier.